born individuals threatened by their patients after graduate student Prasenjit Poder murdered Tatiana Tarasov. The Supreme Court upheld the ordering of warrantless blood tests in the case of Schmerber v. this state. A case originating in this state modified the obscenity standard set by Memoirs versus Massachusetts with the three-pronged Miller test. Justice Harlan wrote a majority opinion in a case in which Paul Cohen was arrested here for wearing a jacket reading, "Fuck the draft." A medical school in this state was forced to abandon its racial quota system.
California.
That is correct. Okay, Uranus. A major dramatic style from this country produced plays that were usually performed on groups of 2 or 4 large painted wagons. For 10 points each, name this country whose Golden Age theater's emphasis on honor was likely influenced by the Moors. This country is home to Lope de Vega, who supposedly wrote 2 plays a week for a total of 1,800.
Spain.
Correct? This ubiquitous literary character first appeared on stage in the Golden Age era. Tirso de Molina played a play about him and the stone guest. This scoundrel dies by supernatural retribution while in the tomb of the commander he killed.
Don Juan.
Correct.
Nice.
Golden Age theater often featured the cynical gracioso or clown, one of them. Clara meets this prince, whose father, Basilio, imprisons him out of fear of a prophecy that he will ruin the kingdom of Poland.
Sure.
Answer?
Prince.
Segismundo. So the funny on the bottom. Okay. Toss-up 2. A character in this novel says the greatest man he ever met was a 7-foot-tall socialist leader who earned a nickname for appearing in half the country's Kodak advertisements. A character in this novel prizes a lapis lazuli-encrusted spittoon that hits him in the head and gives him amnesia. This novel's protagonist recalls how a sneeze saved a man from being killed on the orders of Brigadier Dyer. In this novel, a British man sells 6 villas for cheap prices. That man, William Methwold, seduces the wife of the accordionist, Wee Willie Winkie. In this novel, Padma listens to the story recounted by a man who gains telepathy from his large nose. For 10 points, name this novel in which Celine Sine.
Midnight Story.
Correct. This actress gained fame in a role as a Mongol slave girl who poisons the caliph's daughter in the classic 1924 Douglas Fairbanks swashbuckler film, The Thief of Baghdad. For 10 points each, name this actress who also appeared in films like The Toll of the Sea and later alongside Marlene Dietrich in Shanghai Express. The Hays Code prevented her from starring in an adaptation of Pearl Buck's The Girl. Answer? It's Anna May Wong. This director depicted himself caught in a shootout in a hall of mirrors at the end of his The Lady from Shanghai, which starred his wife, Rita Hayworth. Answer? It's Orson Welles. The director of The Thief of Baghdad, Raoul Walsh, played John Wilkes Booth in the director's film The Birth of a Nation. Answer? It's D.W. Griffith. So that's 0 in the bonus. Okay. Toss-up 3. This composer's Symphony No. 1 links its 3rd and 4th movement with a crescendoing snare drum roll that begins its 1st movement with a short passage for a muted solo trumpet. One of this composer's string quartets comprises 5 movements. The first and last marked largo, and all 5 are played without a pause in between. That piece is this composer's string quartet No. 8 in C minor, which uses a recurring D, E flat, C, B motif, also found in his E minor Symphony No. 10. This composer used a very conservative style to write his Symphony No. 5 in D minor as a response to the denunciation of his opera Lady Macbeth.
Shostakovich.
Correct. This system's Hamiltonian contains a potential equal to the Coulomb attraction between 2 particles of the fundamental charge. For 10 points each, name the system consisting of an electron orbiting a proton. The munium is a similar system to this system with an antimuon. result in a pair of spectral lines in the presence of a magnetic field due to differences in spin states, an effect known by this name. Splitting due to this effect causes the transitions required for electron spin resonance.
You said Zeeman effect?
Correct. Another oddity in the hydrogen spectrum is this difference in energy between the two S1 and 2p1 states not predicted by the Dirac equation.
What's the orbitals?
Answer?
P orbitals.
It's Lamb shift.
Okay, yeah, we got that. All right, keep that functional. I'll take that.
So that was 20 of those. Toss-up 4. Oh yeah, sorry. Toss-up 4. This process is described by the equation d phi dt plus the divergence of v times phi equals 0, where v is the velocity and phi is a scalar. The flux resulting from this process is equal to the product of a transport coefficient and the difference between the surface and the free stream concentration. When there are no net sources or sinks, the continuity equation for mass transfer has two terms corresponding to diffusion into this process. Whether this process is driven by buoyant forces or an external flow determines whether it is natural or forced. This process leads to mixing of the material in the mantle.
Conduction.
Correct.
It was.
This title was formally abolished with the proclamation of the Sultanate at the outbreak of World War I. Pretenders each identify this title a rough equivalent of Viceroy. It was first claimed by a man who was given the title Wali in 1805, and its usage was finally sanctioned by Sultan Abdulaziz in 1867.
Caliph?
Incorrect. It's Khedive. This ruler, the first to claim the title Khedive, set a trap at the citadel and slaughtered numerous Mamluks in 1811. His son Ibrahim was crushed at the Battle of Navarino. Answer? It's Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was Khedive for this modern-day African country where he took over from the Mamluks.
Egypt?
Correct. So, 10. Toss-up 5. A week after publication, this book's author wrote an article asking who is the author of this book in a response to criticism like that of Johann Heiber. This book argues that Don Juan avoided sleeping with the same woman twice to avoid the diminished pleasure due to repetition. This book presents essays on tragedy and shadowgraphs before a club of dead men who write posthumous papers. This book, which is continued in its author's Stages on Life's Way, claimed it is sourced from the writings found by a hermit in a desk drawer. Its second section draws on the memoirs of Judge Wilhelm. This book claims to be by Victor Evremida and contains the seducer's diary of Johann Climacus. For 10 points, name this book whose title contrasts aesthetic and ethical living, a book by Soren Kierkegaard.
Fear and Trembling?
Incorrect. Answer? Or, answer? It is either or. Toss-up 6. The bootstrap method was devised as an improvement to the jackknife method for estimating this quantity for a sample. Bartlett's test may be used to determine if a number of samples are from populations with equal values of this quantity, a condition known as homoscedasticity. For the geometric distribution, this quantity is equal to 1 minus p over p squared. If a continuous distribution lacks an expected value, then it also lacks a value for this quantity. That is because this quantity is defined as the square of the expected value minus
Variance?
correct. This company recently bought cloud computing company NetSuite for $9.3 billion. For 10 points each, name this giant tech company which mainly sells business and database software. This company, the second largest software company in the world, has Larry Ellison as its CEO.
IBM.
It's Oracle. Oracle is a major player in the market for this kind of software and has a partnership with its largest provider, Salesforce. This kind of software tracks the life cycle of a business's interactions with the consumer.
Quality control software.
It's customer relationship management, or CRMs. Salesforce has managed to dodge being taken over by both Oracle and this other tech company, which reluctantly purchased its own fleet of cargo planes and plans to roll out a drone-based service in the future.
Amazon. Amazon.
Correct. So that's 10 points on the bonus. Okay, toss-up 7. The two main administrative divisions of this empire were great houses and city-states, the latter of which were administered by great speakers who served as both priest and governor. This empire extracted most of its tributes in the form of beads and blankets and was built around an alliance of 3 major cities. The stone of Tizoc was created by people in this empire who achieved huge agricultural output by building artificial islands on
That's that.
correct. A man is shown vomiting in this work, succumbing to effects of its title event. For 10 points each, name this large painting, one of 13 sold from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in 1990. In this work, the only figure facing the viewer is a man with a hand on his head who strongly resembles the artist's self-portraits. He's surrounded by Jesus and others on a small craft. Answer? It's Storm on the Sea of Galilee. Storm on the Sea of Galilee is the only seascape by this artist of a series dedicated to the 5 senses. This Dutchman painted the company of Frans van Gogh in the Night Watch.
Rembrandt.
Correct. This large painting in the National Gallery by Rembrandt features a woman spilling wine on her sleeve in a shock over seeing a floating ham. Answer?
Man in the Golden Helmet.
It's Belshazzar's Feast. Yeah, that was 10 on the bonus, yeah. Okay, toss-up 8. A musical by this composer begins with an ominous organ solo that is cut off by the shrill sound of a whistle. In another of this composer's musicals, the protagonist begs, "Somebody hold me too close and somebody hurt me too deep," after seeing multiple scenes of his friend's dysfunctional married lives on his 35th birthday party. In one of his songs, Desiree moans, "Isn't it rich? Are we a pair? Me here at last on the ground and you in midair." This composer wrote a musical in which the baker, Miss Lovett, wonders whether priests or poets would taste better in their cannibalistic pies in a conversation with the title serial-killing barber. He included Cindy and the Clowns in his musical A Little Night Music. For 10 points, name this composer of Company and Sweeney Todd.
Copeland.
Incorrect. Incorrect. Stephen Sondheim. Toss-up 9. In one tradition, this observance involves people making dolls of a woman with no ears or mouth, whose 7 feet are broken off one by one. They also make a special flatbread called Lagana. Part of this period sees statues and crosses covered up with purple veils. King Monday is the beginning of the Orthodox Greek version of this observance, which in Latin is called Quadragesima. The day before this period's beginning often involves eating pancakes. On this period's first day, a priest says, "Dust you are, and to dust you will return," while drawing crosses of ash on its observers' foreheads. This period includes...
Lent.
Correct. Warren McCulloch and Walter Pitts developed an early model for these systems using so-called threshold logic. For 10 points each, name these machine learning systems whose artificial variety seeks to emulate their biological counterparts.
Intelligence.
It is neural networks.
Oh.
Neural networks are often used in this branch of computer science, whose name was coined by John McCarthy. Its applications include self-driving cars and natural language processing. developing this programming language, whose name indicates that it is useful to easily manipulate lists.
Basic.
It's Lisp or LISP. So that's kind of what this is. Okay. Toss-up 10. At supper to these characters, a man brags that a girl who draws live from hyacinths is actually his daughter before he's convinced to hang himself. At the start of the play, which those characters are in, one of these beings is asked for a drink of water by a student sitting by the wheelchair-bound Jacob Hummel. In a play title for these beings, a mother who raises a sexually deviant painter flees her womanizing husband. She then takes refuge with a preacher who is accused of burning an uninsured building funded by the will of the deceased captain in an orphanage. Arkenholz wanders around an apartment in a Steinberg play titled for these beings, who title a play in which the syphilic Oswald is cared for by Helen Alving. For 10 points, Henrik Ibsen wrote a play titled For What Spectral Beings? What'd you think?
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. During this event, Peneus is crushed with tree trunks and stones, but transforms into a bird and harmlessly flies away. For 10 points each, name this conflict that is instigated at the wedding of Pirithous when Lapiths are forced to fight back against their mortal enemies who have been driven into a frenzy by the smell of wine. Answer? It is the Centauromachy. This hero fights for Pirithous and the Lapiths during the Centauromachy. Earlier, he slays the Minotaur after navigating Daedalus's intricate labyrinth.
Theseus.
Correct? Though he is more commonly called Perdix, Apollodorus gives this name to the nephew of Daedalus. The Argonautica recounts how Zeus appointed a character with this name to control Crete and protect Europa. Answer? It's Talos. So that's 10 on the bonus. And we can move into score check. And are there any substitutions?
And Grayson has 13.
Okay. So is everybody good?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, what was those?
Toss-up 11. The oxo process adds one of these functional groups to a double bond. Because pyridinium chlorochromate is milder than the Jones reagent, it will always produce one of these functional groups when reacting with an alcohol. A common method for protecting this group forms a silic acetyl upon reaction with the ethylene glycol. Reaction of one of these functional groups with the triphenylphosphonium ylide forms an alkene with the Wittig reaction. A slightly positive carbon found in this functional group makes an excellent target for nucleophilic attack and is the typical target of Grignard reagents, which forms an alcohol from these functional groups. For 10 points, name this functional group present in aldehydes and ketones.
Carbonyl.
Correct. This person assembled the Varangian Guard for 10 points each. Name this Byzantine ruler who barely escaped defeat at the hands of Tsar Samuel at the gates of Trajan, before later winning the battle of Clydion and blinding thousands of his enemies.
Justinian?
It's Basil the Bulgar.
Oh.
Basil married his sister Anna Porphyrogenita to this man in return for military assistance. The primary chronicle in this is the source of an anecdote in which this man sent envoys to learn the religions of the world. Answer?
Peter the Great.
It's Vladimir the First, or Vladimir the Great. Vladimir the Great was a member of the Rurikid dynasty that led a Slavic state based in this modern-day city, now Nowadays, it is the capital of Ukraine.
Kiev.
Correct. So 10 on the bonus. Toss-up 12. Tom Vilsack announced steps toward lightening this policy in March 2016, arguing that doing so would massively benefit U.S. agriculture. This policy was strengthened after cargo planes owned by Brothers to the Rescue were shot down.
Cuban embargo.
Power.
Nice.
Okay. While living in Samoa, the author made up for ending this novel with a cliffhanger by writing a sequel to it titled Catriona. For 10 points each, name this novel about David Balfour's travels with Alan Breck after Breck is falsely accused of killing the Red Fox, an English official. Answer? Kidnapped. In another novel by the author of Kidnapped, McKellar tells the story of this man who flips a coin with his brother Henry to determine which sides they will take in a rebellion. Answer? So it's the Master of Ballantrae. The Scottish author wrote Kidnapped and the Master of Ballantrae, as well as Treasure Island and the Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Stevenson.
Correct. 10 on the bonus. Toss-up 13. A leader of this party sang a song waiting at the church at a meeting with the supporters to signal that he would not call for elections that year. That leader of this party is the only politician from his country to have served in all 4 of the great offices of state. This party won an election after an opponent claimed that it would have to use some form of Gestapo to implement its policies. A member of this party was criticized by the headline, "Crisis? What crisis?" during the winter of discontent. This party, whose members include Aneurin Bevan, lost power after the publication of the Genevieve letter, while led by Ramsay MacDonald. It created the National Health Service during the administration of Clement Attlee. For 10 points, name this political rival of the Conservative Party.
The Labor Party.
Correct. Okay, this symphony's allegretto, second movement, is underlined by a persistent long, short, short, long, long rhythm. For 10 points each, name this A major symphony by Ludwig von Beethoven. Richard Wagner called its final apotheosis of the dance.
The fifth.
It's the 7th. Originally dedicated to Napoleon Bonaparte, this Beethoven symphony is often considered the starting point of musical romanticism.
Eroica.
Correct? In the scherzo of the Eroica Symphony, a solo for this instrument introduces the opening theme. A solo for this instrument repeats the main theme near the start of the symphony's funeral march, second movement. Answer?
A flute.
It's an oboe, so that's 10. Toss-up 14. A character from a play set in this city spends 9 years yelling for his ham after a butcher reneges on a deal and offers him chicken instead. Sterling attends the funeral of Hambone in a play set in the city where a wise woman lives in the hill and dies at the age of 366. In a play set in this city, a head injury causes a war veteran to believe he is the archangel Gabriel. The city, the setting of 2 trains running, is the home of the Charles family, which gets into a long and bitter fight over Boy Willie's attempts to sell the title instrument. In another play set here, Troy Maxson refuses to let his son play college football out of fear of racial discrimination. For 10 points, what city is the setting of the piano lesson and fences to?
Pittsburgh.
Correct. A cook named Jonna, who belongs to these people, repeatedly quotes, "This is the way the world ends," at the end of Tracy Letts' August Osage County. For 10 points each, give the racial classification for these people, whose author includes N. Scott Momaday, who wrote The Way to Rainy Mountain. Longfellow's The Song of Hiawatha is about a fictional warrior of these people.
Native Americans.
Correct? This Native American author wrote about a hydrocephalus Catholic Spokane boy named Junior who transfers to an all-white school. This author wrote the collection The Lone Ranger and Tonto Fist Fight in Heaven.
Sherman Lexi.
Correct. In this novel by Mona Day, the long-haired Puebloan Abel clashes with the priest of the sun while in a Los Angeles prison and listens to stories told by his grandfather, Francisco. Answer? Housemaid is on, so 20 on the bonus. Toss-up 15. According to Arjun Appadure, the global economy for this thing has 5 types of scrapes, like finance skates and techno skates. This is the first title noun of the 1976 Marshall Solins book that outlines debates between materialist and symbolic theories of it. A book of essays about understanding this thing states that man is an animal suspended in webs of significance. The mind of primitive man, says researchers, must consider a subject's actions in the context of the subject's one of these without moral judgment. A principle called this thing is relativism. Functionalist theories like Emile Durkheim's argue that this thing evolves in connection with a society's activities, thus its norms change over time. For 10 points in this concept, the collective beliefs and values. Culture. Correct. The brief period after mixing where this assumption does not hold is the high turnover burst phase. For 10 points each, identify this assumption that sets the change of concentration of a reaction intermediate to 0 so as to allow kinetics to be in terms of just reactants and products. Answer?
No.
Steady state approximation. The steady state approximation is applied when using the Michaelis-Menten equation, which describes the kinetics of these biological catalysts. Correct. The numerator of the Michaelis-Menten equation multiplies the substrate concentration by this quantity, half of which is reached when the substrate concentration is equal to the Michaelis constant. It is maximum velocity, or Vmax. So, yeah, that's 10 on the bonus. Toss-up 16. A novel by this author was originally subtitled Banker, referring to the protagonist proving himself by fishing in Newfoundland's Grand Banks. This author wrote about a spoiled boy who joins the crew of Gisco Troop's schooner. This author wrote about a religious man who refuses to sell his painting of a Wheel of Life and goes to the Wonder House in search of a river that sprang from an arrow. He wrote about Harvey Chain in his novel Captain Courageous. This title character of a novel by this author is the son of an Irish soldier who lives on the streets of Lahore before meeting a Tibetan Lama. That boy helps British agents in the Great Bane while traveling across India. For 10 points, identify this English author of Him and the Jungle Book. Correct? Isn't purple a wonderful color? For 10 points each, Roman senators were marked by having a purple stripe on this popular Roman garment wrapped around the body, which includes the praetexta variety. Correct. In the classical world, purple dye was often obtained from this civilization's city of Tyre. These maritime people from modern Lebanon created an alphabet modified by the Greeks. Correct. The famous Tyrian purple dye could be obtained from milk secreted when these snails were potted or attacked. The Tyrians preferred to boil these animals in lead pots for days, giving off a legendarily horrible smell. Answer? It was Murex snails. So, 20 on the bonus. Toss-up 17. To recover from an event in this city, Queen Maria the Pious founded the Casa Pia educational charity. Over the ruins of a hospital in the city, the square of the fig tree was built as part of an effort led by Manuel Maya. An attack on a king on his way back to his tent court of Ahuda outside this city led to the killing of the entire Tavora family. Survivors of an event here were told to bury the dead and heal the living. This city suffered destruction in an event on All Saints' Day. Its Baisha district was rebuilt under the direction of Marques Marcus de Pombal, minister to Joseph I of Braganza. An event here inspired a namesake poem by Voltaire as well as Candide.
Lisbon?
Correct. This adjective denotes the propositions which have meaning independently, as opposed to propositions which only have meanings in synthetic context. For 10 points each, identify this adjective, which also denotes the English-speaking philosophical tradition focusing on precision of argument and word usage as contrasted with continental philosophy.
Rhetoric?
Analytic. This two-word name is applied to philosophers in the analytic tradition like J.L. Austin, who believed that problems in philosophy stem from arguments that forget the meanings of words. Answer?
Non-semantic.
Ordinary language. This analytic philosopher wrote his treatise Principia Mathematica with Alfred North Whitehead. This non-Christian analogized to undiscoverable God, the namesake teapot floating in space.
Russell.
Correct. So, 10 of those. Cross of 18. The severity of this condition can be quantified using the 6-parameter Johnson-de Meester score. Drugs used to treat this non-tumor condition are typically also used to treat Zollinger-Ellison syndrome. This condition may lead to the unnatural appearance of goblet cells, a condition named for Barrett. A treatment for this condition named for Nissen involves wrapping up the fundus. This condition can result in stricture and commonly treated with proton pump inhibitors such as omeprazole. This condition typically occurs due to failure of the lower esophagus.
Acid reflux.
Correct. Cartelization and predatory pricing are methods of discouraging this phenomenon. For 10 points each, identify this economic process that provides the mechanism for Adam Smith's metaphorical invisible hand. In most cases, economists tend to agree that this process improves quality and lowers price.
Competition.
Correct. This simple model of competition was inspired by its creator's observation of a spring water duopoly. This model, in this model, profit-maximizing firms have market power and compete on output, which they can decide independently. Answer?
Collaborative.
It's Cournot competition or Cournot. Basic models of Cournot competition make this assumption about the product. This assumption is also made about all products created by firms in perfect competition. A description is acceptable.
They're identical.
Correct. Yeah. They're called homogeneous products, but yeah. So, yeah, 20 of them. Toss of 19. This object is entrusted to a sorceress who produced a counterfeit and stages a duel between her lover and the owner of this object. A portrait of it that heals wounds is thrown away as revenge for the death of Colin. The name of this object may be related to a rainbow-producing possession of Burgess Mockroy named Calipole. As its owner dies, this object is ordered to be cast into a lake 3 times, after which a hand reaches out from the water to grasp it.
Excalibur.
Correct. Nathan Glazer and Daniel Patrick Moynihan collaborated on a sociological study whose title purports to go beyond this cultural concept. For 10 points each, identify this 2-word concept derived from the title of a 1908 play by Israel Zane Will. In that play, David Keanu falls in love with Vera, a Russian noblewoman from Kishinev. Answer? It's Melting Pot. The play moved this president to write that we Americans are children of the crucible. In other speeches, he criticized so-called hyphenated Americans and urged Americans to embrace the strenuous life. Answer?
Roosevelt.
Prompt?
Teddy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. In the play, David Keanu hails the unborn millions destined to immigrate to America, he stands near this New York landmark, a gift from France designed by Frederick Bartholdi and Gustav Eiffel on Bedloe's Island.
Century Woodard.
Correct, so 20. Okay, toss-up 20, the last. George Orwell attacked an installation piece by this artist that shows a chauffeur with a shark head as deceased and disgusting, or diseased and disgusting. This artist of reigning taxi modeled a painting of an artist leaning on a maul stick with a bottle resting on his extended leg on an older artist's allegory of painting. Another of this artist's paintings shows diseased dogs at the bottom right of a blue-gray hand-like shape, which is juxtaposed with an orange figure kneeling next to a pool. This artist of the ghost of the Vermeer of Delft, which can be used as a table, and the Metamorphosis of Narcissus, painted a dying tree branch holding one of three melting objects.
Picasso.
25. One of three melting objects in a painting which shows ants running over a clock. For 10 points, name the surrealist who executed The Persistence of Memory.
Dolly.
Correct. This poet wrote about a man from up by Kosciuszko's Valley who chased down a valuable runaway colt even after famous horsemen like Clancy of the Overflow had failed. For 10 points, each name this poet who wrote about life in his country's bush in the literary journal The Bulletin, including his poem The Man from Snowy River.
So, White.
Banjo Patterson. Banjo Patterson was a poet from this country. He wrote this country's much beloved song about a jolly swagman who, camped by a billabong, waltzing Matilda. Correct. The line, I work all day and hardly drink at all, opens a poem by Australian poet Les Murray, which parodies this Englishman's poem, Body. Another of his poems advises, get out as early as you